A couple is celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary on Passover. They have been lovingly devoted to each other for all those years. And as the door opens to let Elijah the prophet in, there's suddenly a whoosh and a voice. And Elijah says, I have been coming here for all these years, watching you so devoted to each other, that I'm going to give you each a reward. You may each make one wish. And the wife is so thrilled, and she says, what I want more than anything is I want to be able to travel the world with my darling husband. And poof, tickets for an around-the-world crystal cruise appear in her hand. And the husband says, wow. This is a tremendous, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'm so sorry, honey, but what I really want is a wife 30 years younger than me. Now, this was like a knife in her heart. She was devastated, but Eliyahu kept his word, and poof, he turned 93. I just want you to know, I want you to know, A, this was a big risk for me because I never tell jokes. So I like drama. I like to, give it over, but I'm never a joke teller. So thank you for laughing. I really appreciate it, and maybe I'll do it again sometime. As we all merited to make the journey on Passover yet another year from slavery to freedom, it's incumbent upon us to find the relevance of Passover in our lives. There's a remarkable piece in God's method of preparing the Jews to leave Egypt. God commands every Jewish household to take a lamb into the home for a few days, then slaughter it, and mark the doorpost of the house with its blood. Imagine being in that place for a minute. Take a lamb, the very animal that is worshipped as a deity in the hostile society in which you live, care for it, and then risk your life to kill it so that its blood will protect you from God's final devastating blow. To take this action required such a deep trust in God that most of the Jews, they just didn't do it. As we know, most of them assimilated and didn't leave Egypt. This marking on the doorpost, it was the first mezuzah. Jewish Egyptians were challenged to distinguish their homes, not with a subtle mark, but with a bold, emphatic, and risky statement. God clearly had an eternal message in this, and it applies to us today. As educators and investors in Jewish education, we are partners with the holiest institution since the Beit HaMikdash stood. That is the Jewish home. Many Jews, I would guess the vast majority, they have no idea that the holiest place is in fact not the synagogue, but the home. Some even think I'm a bad Jew because I don't go to synagogue, when in fact, every Jewish home has equal potential to instill the Jewish identity and values that sustain the Jewish people. The Jewish institutions that we devote ourselves to are extensions of the home. School is not a substitute for, but it's an essential limb of the home. When families choose to entrust their children's education and direct their dollars to Jewish day schools, they expect an experience that, well, like their homes, is distinctly Jewish. Distinction is in our DNA, and it has enabled our survival throughout the ages. Scattered to all four corners of the earth, Distinction is the unifier that has made survival possible. God said, mark your houses because the values you hold inside are the hallmark of the Jewish family. That will distinguish you for all time. When God commanded us to make ourselves distinct, it was by the unit of the home, not the individual. There are many takeaways here, and I will highlight two of them. One, we have a responsibility in Jewish education to align with the holiest component of our community, the home. Few day schools have focused resources on parent engagement, and even fewer have cracked the code on how to make it work right. Lewis and I, among many philanthropists, encourage community partnerships that leverage each organization's strengths. Perhaps schools need to forge partnerships with existing organizations operating in the adult education space. In this way, all stakeholders are included, from parents to funders to influencers, without schools trying to be something they are not. These are important dots to connect. Are we recognizing that an essential component of day school success is aligning school, home, and community? Are we utilizing the resources we have available to foster that alignment? Two, we have a clear directive to distinguish Jewish subjects. The root of mezuzah is zuz, to move. Maintaining our uniqueness as we move around the globe has resulted in our unlikely survival and vitality. Our success in educating Jewishly is directly related to our expression of distinct values. Sadly, the choices we often make are not connecting those dots. We need to draw that line between how we convey our Jewish subjects and desired outcomes. How do the decisions we make impact the Jewish self-esteem of the students we serve? Are the policies, curriculum, and evaluations conveying what we intend about what it means to be Jewish and meeting the goals of a Jewish institution? Are we reaching beyond the trappings we imitate from the outside world to reflect the Jewish value of rewarding individual effort instead of results? This is the 6th year I stand before you to open the morning of our Innovators Retreat and speak out about the misuse of grading in Judaic studies. It is just not consistent with Jewish wisdom to critically judge a Jew's ability to learn Torah subjects. A student labeled anything but an A in a Jewish subject will internalize a view of him or herself as less than great at Jewish study, or worse, a less than great Jew. If we agree we want to build Jewish self-esteem in our students, how can we work against cultivating Jewish greatness by applying exams and grading developed for general studies to Jewish studies? That dot is not connected, and we are feeling the results of that disconnect painfully with every student who graduates without a lifelong love of Jewish learning and rock-solid Jewish identity. Every year, I share a quote from one of my kids, and I thought I was lacking material this year until I received, just a few weeks ago, a message from my 21-year-old. Nathaniel is a second-year communications student at IDC Herzliya, and he came through. He WhatsApped me, and I quote, "Also started a chavruta with Rav Josh, Minyan, and then Gemara on Wednesdays. And I'm starting to love the intellectual challenge of Talmud now that there's no grade." End quote. and he punctuated it with an emoji of like that laughing, crying face. I posted a conversation I recorded from his afternoon carpool on our JEIC website in 2013. He and 3 other boys from his class were talking about how demoralized their grades in Jewish subjects made them feel, and I recorded it. He is still carrying that with him now, 3 years post-high school. I know, both in my heart and my head, we are doing a huge disservice to our people by imitating a system of evaluation designed for subjects like math and history. Those subjects don't cut to the core of a person's identity. They aren't subjects unique to a people who have a responsibility to distinguish themselves among nations. Those subjects don't inform the values that build a home or a marriage. They don't affect morals or ethical behavior. They don't build future Jewish leaders. Our success is reflected in the happiness and well-being of our graduates, not a job title, not an income level. How they navigate their world, their behavior, their ethics, their courage, that reflects our success as Jewish educators. While I am all for academic achievement, mastery of textual skills alone is not going to see them to this definition of success that encompasses a whole human being. How solidly rooted they are in their Jewish identity, how relevant do they see the Jewish values and text to their lives, depths of relationships with Jewish mentors, and practice of relationship with God. These are the critical measures of successful Jewish education. Are we connecting those dots with the decisions we make about how to convey Judaics in our schools? Do we lead equally with the heart and the head to strive to achieve a healthy balance of the two? I mentioned courage as a vital trait for Jewish growth and expression. It took an unimaginable amount of courage for those Jews in Egypt to paint their doorposts with lamb's blood. It takes courage to move from one culture to another, to change practice, customs, to transform ourselves, our institutions. And courage, it's so rare these days that when we come across it, it gets a lot of attention and admiration. I attended APAC Policy Conference in March. From the lineup of prestigious speakers, the most talked about was Nikki Haley. She said, and I quote, "The most important thing is to not be afraid to stick with the fundamental principles, even when they go against entrenched customs. Some of those outdated customs have gone unquestioned for years," end quote. Ambassador Haley presents a courage that is refreshing in politics. She dares to buck the status quo. She stands up to bullying, and she speaks for what she believes is just. She is a true hero. But this type of courage, it's not foreign to Jews. From the lamb's blood on the doorpost to Nachshon bravely walking into the sea up to his nostrils, we, the Jewish people, have courage embedded in our core. If we choose to access this courage to become leaders in the education field instead of followers, we will enable our future generations to fulfill their mission in this world. Nikki Haley, she continued with a simple retort that inspires me deeply. She said, and I quote, "Some of you might have seen that the top Palestinian negotiator recently had some advice for me. He told me to shut up. Mr. Erekat, I will always be respectful, but I will never shut up. Well, I'm not about to either. I am committed to fighting courageously for what I know is right, for the values that distinguish us, and for future generations of Jews to choose and to own their Judaism. Your presence here and your partnership tells me that you are committed too. You are invited here because we share big picture change for Jewish day schools. This room is filled with special energy, talent, and potential. Let us also have the courage to say what needs to be said, to do what needs to be done, and in doing so, connect those dots that will actualize our efforts to evolve Jewish day schools into the distinct greatness that befits the Jewish people. So, with that, let's get our day going because we have a lot of dots to connect.